we've entered an age of information glut. And this is something no culture has really faced before. The typical situation is information scarcity. But beginning in the mid-19th century, I suppose, we began what you call the communications revolution. Lack of information can be very dangerous, and we agree. But at the same time, too much information can be very dangerous because it can lead to a situation of meaninglessness. That is, people not having any basis for knowing what is relevant, what is irrelevant, what is useful, what is not useful. That they live in a culture that is simply committed through all of its media to generate tons of information every hour without categorizing it in any way for you. This becomes, I think, a threat, not only to one's peace of mind, but much more important than that, to one's sense of meaning. Because what the problem is now, not how to get information to people, but how to help people get some meaning from what's happening. I mean, I do grant your point that it is possible to invent technologies that will actually restrict for you the availability of information. But so far, it seems very clear to me that the great crisis in America, especially, by the way, in education, is that we are overwhelmed, flooded, drowning in information. No one knows what to do with it. No one knows how to classify it. But this is the whole question. If culture is communication, and if it's shared information, then what is our culture now? We have 15,000 newspapers in America, about 15,000 magazines. There's 60 billion pieces of junk mail come into our mailboxes every year. There are millions of computers and millions of television sets and radios, and it's all just pouring out stuff, and no one has any sense of what to do with it. Why aren't people outraged, for instance, if they're watching a television news show and there's a story about a murder in the Bronx or a rape someplace, and this is followed then by a commercial for Levi or United Airlines? Why don't people, in the normal course of events, say, this is outrageous? How can you expect me to react to the meaning of a rape in the Bronx, and then the next second expect me to have a different emotional response entirely to a commercial about jeans? Isn't there something wrong here? Well, from the standpoint of our world, there isn't anything wrong, because nothing leads to anything else or is connected to anything else. It's this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. We are less coherent in our understanding of information. I mean, there was a time when the word information always had associated with it action. That is, people sought information in order to solve some problem in their lives, and information was the instrument through which they would solve this problem. Then, beginning in the 19th century, information became a commodity, beginning actually, I think, with telegraphy, something you could buy and sell. And the action association began to diminish, so that now there is nothing but information, and we're not really expected to do anything with it, just consume it. To know what to do with information depends on one's having some sort of conceptual framework. I sometimes call it, and some of my colleagues do, some narrative, some story, which helps you to decide which information you will seek out and why you want to seek it out and what it's good for. Even the great story of inductive science has lost a good deal of its meaning because it does not address the several questions that all great narratives must address. Where do we come from? What's going to happen to us? Where are we going, that is, and what are we supposed to do when we're here? Science couldn't answer that, and technology doesn't. The idea that it is through technological progress that we will achieve happiness, and that therefore it is a good thing for us to adapt ourselves and change our culture to fit the needs of technology, because this is it is on the wings of technology that we will find paradise. That in itself is a story in which many people believe. I think through education we can make people rather more aware of what kind of bargain technology is, helping them to distance themselves to some extent. I think that is possible because, see, Americans are in love with technology, which is a problem. I think technology understood as a great Faustian bargain. Technology giveth, and technology taketh away. If we understand that tale, then with every new technology, we would have to ask, what will it give us and what will it take? We can't be so naive as to think that we are completely in control of any technology.
If not we, then who?
Well, to some extent, the technology has its own agenda. I mean, if you build a 747, you may not want to build one. But once you build a 747, you're not going to use it to carry commuters from Scarsdale to New York. Once you build a 747, the structure of the machine itself will tell you how you're going to use it. And if you build a combustion engine machine, well, you could use an automobile to raise chickens in, but it's very unlikely. In other words, every technology has an agenda of its own. If we understand what that agenda is, we have several options. One, we may not want the technology to begin with, or second, if we can't help getting it, we may want to through social policy, political action, and education in some way minimize its negative consequences as we perceive them and predict them, and maybe even maximize its constructive possibilities.
I can't